Hi there, it's Rachel from Scrapea&happy.blogspot.com with another crafty video. I know it's been quite a while since I've done my last video, but I had some health issues and was reevaluating my wedding layout series, and I found that I was spending so much time getting set up for the video and doing the video that I wasn't getting scrap pages done. And the purpose of why I started this hobby was to focus on getting layouts and projects done. This video part has become sort of an addition to, so I wanted to get back to my roots, so to speak. But I do miss the videos, and thank you to all of you who did comment and say how much you miss my videos and were checking in to make sure everything's okay. And I am feeling a lot better, and I'm ready to share this project. So this card is going to be first in a series that I make of vintage / girly inspired cards, and it's all going to be held once all the 6 cards are made. Then I'm going to show you how to make the purse that I'm going to have them in, and then these are going to be all used as a gift pack of cards to give as a gift at Christmas time, or who knows, maybe sell, or we'll see what ends up happening. So this is the card we're making today. Online I've seen lots of projects that use dress forms, and I know Tim Holtz has a really nice die cut, and there is a cartridge or Cricut cut on Forever Young, which is a cartridge that I own that has a dress form, but I really liked the that one is more of a sort of a current dress form, or a little more trendy, and what I liked about the Tim Holtz inspired one is that it was more vintage like, and I just all of a sudden have just been on this vintage kick lately. So I thought what I would do is share with you how I made this one. So I was determined I wasn't going to go out and buy the dress form, because I know it's a trend and a fad, and it'll be something that will go in time, and not sure if it'll be something I use. So I got my gypsy with the intent that I was going to use it to make things that I liked. So I was determined I was going to be able to use the gypsy to make a dress form such as this. So what I decided to do is open up my gypsy and go through the cartridges to basically make something that looked like the dress form. So what I did is, on my computer I had an image that I just got from Google Images of the Tim Holtz one, and I decided to come up with something that would work. So the base of this form is from the Serenade cartridge. So if you look at the Serenade cartridge, let's just go to that right now. Oops. We just go to the Serenade cartridge. And it is this one right here. Make sure it's coming up on the video. So it is part of a stand to what looks like a bird bath or that sort of thing. So that's what I used as the stem. And then in the Forever Young cartridge is a whole bunch of dresses that are designed to fit all the different ladies of that cartridge. So the one I used for mine, I'll show you quickly the dress form from this cartridge. So the dress form from this cartridge looks like that there. So you can see it's cute in its own right, but I just liked the wider feel of the Tim Holtz one. But I am going to make some cards with that one as well. So then I went to the shift key, I believe, and then you can see, I don't know if it's really coming up so well, but all across the top is a whole bunch of dresses. And the dress that I used for this form is actually the last key on the second row. So that's what the dress looks like there. And so that's the one I used. And what you can see is when you look at my pattern here, is I went through the process of welding and connecting them all together so it all becomes as one, so I can copy and paste and make a whole bunch on my layout. Now the first one that I made looked like this, and it didn't have the little knob at the top like a lot of the dress forms was. And I wanted this to look as authentic and as close to the Tim Holtz one as I can. And it was becoming a real challenge to do that. So what I ended up doing is taking the mirror from the Forever Young cartridge, so that is that one right there, and scaling it down so that it fit the top of the dress, so it looks like basically that there's a pole going all the way in the dress. So I cut out and made basically like a shadow feature. So you cut that layer in black or whatever color you want your base color, and then I made just separate dresses so that I could glue that on to the dress form like that. So I'm quite pleased with how this dress form turned out, and I'm excited because it's something now that I don't need to, another product that I need to go off and buy. And so I was able to get a really neat effect. So the card today will feature this. For the measurements, if you're interested in the measurements of all those, the Serenade, the dress is 4.88. The stand, I can't get the measurements of the stand, and the mirror I can't seem to. So if it's something that you're interested in and want to know, just drop me a line and then I will check it and get back to you so we can get to making the card today. So the card that we're using today, the cardstock we're using is just some pink cardstock here, and vintage. To get the vintage feel, I always find it has to be what's called, I guess, shabby chic. So this is a distressing tool that I bought a long time ago. It's by Making Memories. And what you just do is you go along the edges and you just drag it along to get a tattered, rough edge look. So I've already gone ahead and done that. Then the next thing I did is I took this pattern piece of paper that came from an American Crafts stack, and I thought it had a vintage feel. And again, what I went and did is I dragged this all across, and then what you can see I did is I went ahead and just curled some of them, and then I just teared so it looks like little slits, and to get a torn, tattered look. And that's the look I'm going for with this vintage series and girly series, Shabby Chic. So I went ahead and did that. So then the next step after doing that is to use some sort of a distress ink, or an ink that's going to just give it a more aged look. So the one I go to and use a lot that I've had forever since this look first got introduced to scrapbooking is the Van Dyke Brown. So I just go along all the edges, and because I want again that aged look, I don't mind if I get globs on spots. The idea is you want it to look like it's aged and old. So again, with this next one, the pattern paper, I'm going to go along the edges and do the same thing because you want that aged look. And then what I even do is just go around the edges where you're going to see it with this card and just ink it up. So some of the beige print gets a look. And then if you want to, you can sort of crinkle it up a little bit. It's completely up to you how aged you want your paper to look like. So then what I go ahead and do is just adhere this down to the cardstock for our first layer. So I'm going to just stick that down like so. Okay, and then the next layer of the card is this piece here. Now I cut this out on beige cream cardstock and I've run this through. Originally it looked like this shape here, and this shape, I'm excited to say, comes from the Elegant Edges cartridge, which is a newer cartridge, and why I bought this one is when I decided to buy my Cricut, I was going to stick with one cutting system that I would buy items for. I didn't want to have a separate die cutting machine, with the exception of the Cuddlebug, which can do die cutting. I wanted to stick with something. So what's great about this one here is it reminds me a lot of the Nestabilities, and I don't own any of those, and you can see it has lots of nice, well, we'll just look at this one here on page 61. This is the one I use. It has lots of nice frames and shapes. This is the one I used here, the oblong, on the shift and shadow feature. It has borders, lots like this one here reminds me of one of the Nestabilities. This is sort of doily-like. So there's lots of filler type items that you can use for it. So this cut was just cut. I didn't even use my gypsy for it. I cut it at 4.5 inches on the dial. And then as I said, I went through it and ran it through the textile embossing, the Cuddlebug embossing folder. And again, you want this to have an aged look, so I'm just going to go along the edges here and ink it up. And again, it's okay if it's messy. You want it to have that aged feel. That's why I chose the cream cardstock. And then I just lightly just run it over some of the letters, the textile there, and then that's going to make our next layer. But before we do that next layer, I've had this pink ribbon that's come off the spool and just waiting to use it. So I'm going to put that along there, and now I can glue this down. Like so, and then I'll be able to tie this. It's going to just be a simple little bow. Okay, just take my scissors and trim that up. Okay, and again, this is just ribbon from my stash. I'm not loyal to any particular brand. Okay, now the next step is to attach our dress form. So again, I want that to have the aged look. So I'm just going to go along here and ink the edges. Because I was so excited and made a whole bunch of these dress forms just to play with, I didn't ink this up beforehand. But it might be easier to ink the dress before you glue it down to the dress form. It completely depends on the look, I guess, you're going for. So then the next thing is to pop dot up the dress, and I'm going to stick it just over to the left-hand side. And then just get these okay, so I'm going to stick that down here. And that's just going to be attached over to the left there. And then I use this Martha Stewart border punch to make the butterflies. And I just use some die cuts with a view glitter paper, just another pink, just to stick with that girly look that I'm after. And then I'm going to use my quick dry adhesive just to glue that down. I'm getting near the end, so I'm just finding that I have to use my T-pin, I guess that's what they're called, to declog it. I'm going to stick that down here. And then the final step of the card is to do the sentiment. And again, I went ahead and used my Elegant Edges cartridge, and I used an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and I cut out at 1.5 inches a whole bunch of the different types of cuts. So I'm not even sure what page that one is from, because I just pushed a whole bunch of buttons and was experimenting. So this is actually cut out at 1.5. So again, because I want the vintage feel, I'm going to go ahead, oh, that's a little bit too much. I'm going to go ahead and ink the edges. Okay, and then I am using this stamp that's called Friend, and it's one of the stamps from the Studio G collection. I know a lot of you might have collected a whole bunch of those when they first came out at Michael's. I know I had to own almost every single set, and at times I think I'm pretty darn close to that, but I had to cut the cord somewhere because, I mean, you only need so many of them. So just stamped the Friend down there, and then I'm going to use the pop dots again. And so my thought is, being that this is going to be a gift set, I thought it would be better just to use a whole bunch of sentiments that you could use it for any occasion. So it could be for birthday, you could do it as a thinking of you card. I mean, there's lots of possibilities. And then I'm just going to push that down at the bottom right hand corner, and then I added flowers. Now this jar, I remember buying when flowers became all the rage, which is a long time ago. I bought this jar of flowers to use on layouts, and you can see it's practically as full as the day I bought it. And I'm really trying to use stuff from my stash. You can see I have it labeled all nice and a pretty ribbon and all that sort of thing, because at the time I didn't want to pay $11, $12 for a whole bunch of Prima flowers just because they were in a pretty jar like this, so I came up with my own pretty jar style. But anyways, as with anything, after it's been on the market for a while, comes down and becomes more affordable, where these were, this bottle here was only $4.95. So just to keep, when I first came up with the design of this card, I did have pink, but pink wasn't doing anything for the card. I didn't want to overdo it with pink, and I kind of liked the color of these flowers with the hint of pink. So how I got these flowers is they were stem of flowers that made up a big group of flowers, if that makes any sense, and I cut them all off. And what I've been actually using to stick these down on is my glue gun. So I'm probably not going to be able to finish that for the video. So that's what that will look like. So we'll just get that all set up here. And then the last step is to take some bling, and I'm going to add some to the hem and to the waist. So this is just Recollections trim. So enough piece to use for another time. And then I'm going to take another row of a bit bigger and put this along the bottom like that, and then that is the finished vintage card. And again, using what I have in my stash. This is all from my stash. Just the new idea is the dress form, but I was using my gypsy and my time to come up with this design. So I'll just, off camera, we'll glue this, and this, you can have one last look at what the card looks like. And there is my finished vintage girly card as part of the series that I'm just starting. So you can see the flowers are attached down, and what I put in the center of each of the flowers is a little dewdrop. So they're pink, but it's not really showing up so much, but they just look like this here. So that's what I used for the card. So I think it turned out quite nice. I'm very happy with the look. Thank you so much for your patience and joining me for this episode of Let's Get Crafty. And I hope that you'll join me in the following series that will look at using my supplies, my stash, to create some girly cards that have a vintage shabby chic style. Take care and happy crafting!